The White Rajah, Sir James Brooke's savage kingdom of adventure and controversy. Hey, explorers and seekers of forgotten empires. What if a British soldier, wounded and restless, abandoned the rigid world of empire to forge his own kingdom in the wild jungles of Borneo? What if he became a king, not by birthright, but by sheer audacity, battling pirates and rebels, yet leaving behind a legacy as complex and controversial as the diamonds he sought? Today, we're tearing open the astonishing, often brutal, saga of Sir James Brooke, the legendary White Rajah of Sarawak. We'll uncover the whispered plots that led him to his jungle throne, the shocking violence he unleashed in the name of order, the scandalous accusations that followed him, and the intriguing personal life that defied Victorian norms. This isn't just history, it's a raw, unfiltered journey into the heart of a man who embodied the contradictions of colonialism, a self-made monarch whose reign still sparks furious debate. Get ready, because the true story of James Brooke is a relentless tale of ambition, adventure, and a legacy that forever changed a corner of Southeast Asia. Our story begins far from the jungles of Borneo, in Bandel, near Calcutta, British India, where James Brooke was born in 1803. His father was an English judge, his mother the daughter of a Scottish peer. This was a privileged, if somewhat distant, upbringing. Sent to England for a brief education at Norwich School at age 12, he famously ran away, a hint of the restless spirit that would define his life. After some home tutoring, he returned to India in 1819, joining the Bengal Army of the British East India Company. His military career was short but impactful. He saw action in Assam during the brutal First Anglo-Burmese War. But in 1825, his journey took a dramatic turn. He was seriously wounded, a gunshot to his right arm and a spear cut to his eyebrow, forcing him back to England for recovery. The wound was severe, and by 1830, he was too late to rejoin his unit in Madras, leading him to resign his commission. This was a man adrift, a soldier without a war, a restless soul seeking a new purpose. Brooke attempted to trade in the Far East, but without success. Then, in 1835, fate intervened. He inherited a substantial fortune of £30,000, equivalent to several $1 million today. This inheritance wasn't spent on a quiet retirement. Instead, it became the fuel for his wildest dreams. He purchased the Royalist, a sleek, 142-ton schooner, and set his sights on the Malay archipelago, a region then shrouded in mystery and danger. He was driven by a thirst for adventure, a desire to explore, and perhaps a nascent ambition to carve out his own destiny. He even secured a travel pass for Borneo from the Dutch Governor-General, along with letters of recommendation, hinting at a calculated approach to his adventure. This was no mere tourist. This was a man on a mission, sailing towards a destiny that would make him a king. In August 1838, James Brooke arrived in Kuching, a small settlement in Sarawak, on the northwest coast of Borneo. What he found was a land in turmoil. The local indigenous peoples, particularly the Iban, were in open rebellion against the Sultan of Brunei's oppressive taxation and misrule. The Sultan's uncle, Pengiran Muda Hashim, was struggling to quell the uprising. Brooke, ever the opportunist, saw his chance. He offered his assistance to Hashim, lending his schooner, his small but well-trained crew, and his military expertise to crush the rebellion. His intervention was decisive. For his efforts, and in gratitude for helping to restore order, Sultan Omar Ali Seferdin II of Brunei, the overlord of Sarawak, made an astonishing offer in 1841. He granted Brooke the governorship of Sarawak. This wasn't just a title, it was a vast territory, effectively making him the de facto ruler. Brooke quickly set about establishing his rule, reforming the administration, codifying laws, and, crucially, vigorously suppressing the widespread piracy that plagued the region. He banned slavery and tried to curb the practice of headhunting, earning him a reputation as an enlightened colonialist who sought to protect the indigenous people from exploitation. He combined the customs and symbols of Malay monarchy with the traditions of the British civil service, creating a unique form of absolute rule. In 1846, the Sultan ceded complete sovereignty of Sarawak to Brooke, confirming him as the Rajah of Sarawak. He was now a king, a White Rajah, ruling an independent kingdom he had carved out of the jungle. But his rise was not without controversy. His anti-piracy campaigns, while celebrated in London, were brutal. He organized a series of raids against pirates, often with the Royal Navy's assistance, for which his crew received head money from the British government, a payment for each pirate killed. This practice would later draw accusations of excessive force and even massacres, sparking a major scandal that would haunt him. James Brooke's reign as the White Rajah was defined by his relentless campaign against piracy, a mission that brought him both fame and infamy. He saw piracy as a scourge, disrupting trade and terrorizing local populations. With the Royal Navy's support, he launched numerous expeditions, often leading his own forces, which included many Dayaks, into fierce battles. He was wounded again in 1844, receiving a gunshot to his arm and a spear cut to his eyebrow during an engagement off Sumatra. For his successes, Brooke was hailed as a hero in Britain. He was given the freedom of the City of London, appointed British Consul General in Borneo, and in 1848 was even knighted as a Knight Commander of the Order of the Bath, KCB, by Queen Victoria herself, who reportedly found nothing objectionable in his methods. However, the very success of his anti-piracy operations became the source of a major scandal. The British government paid head money to those who suppressed piracy, a bounty for each pirate killed. In 1851, accusations of misconduct against Brooke surfaced, specifically regarding the head money he received. Critics in the British Parliament, led by figures like Joseph Hume, questioned whether Brooke was indiscriminately attacking native communities, labeling them pirates to collect the bounties, rather than genuinely fighting actual pirates. They argued that his forces were massacring innocent indigenous people, particularly the Dayaks, under the guise of anti-piracy operations. The scandal escalated, leading to the appointment of a Royal Commission of Inquiry in Singapore in 1854. Brooke was forced to give evidence, a humiliating experience for a self-made monarch. While the commission ultimately dismissed the most serious charges, it found enough evidence of questionable practices to recommend the abolition of head money and led to Brooke being deprived of the governorship of Labuan. The accusations, though not fully proven, continued to haunt Sir James, casting a long shadow over his reputation as an enlightened ruler. The controversy highlighted the brutal realities of colonial expansion and the thin line between establishing order and committing atrocities in the name of civilization. Beyond the political battles and military campaigns, James Brooke's personal life was a subject of much gossip and intrigue, particularly given his lifelong bachelorhood. He died unmarried, a rarity for a man of his stature and ambition, and officially acknowledged no children. This led to endless speculation about his private inclinations and the future of his self-made kingdom. Whispers about his relationships with men were persistent. He famously wrote of his love for Badruddin, a Sarawak prince, stating, "My love for him was deeper than anyone I knew." This phrase, found in his personal writings, led some historians to consider him either homosexual or bisexual. Further rumors circulated about an alleged relationship in 1848 with a 16-year-old named Charles T.C. Others, however, argued that Brooke was merely homosocial, meaning he simply preferred the social company of other men, a common enough preference in Victorian society, and that these relationships were not necessarily sexual. His biographers remain divided on the precise nature of his intimate life, leaving it a fascinating, unresolved mystery. The lack of a direct heir meant the succession of his kingdom was a constant concern. In 1861, he named his sister's oldest son, Captain John Brooke Johnson Brooke, as his successor. However, their relationship quickly soured. Just 2 years later, in 1863, while John was in England, James controversially deposed and banished him from Sarawak. The reason? John had publicly criticized James's policies, particularly his financial management and his increasingly autocratic rule. This was a ruthless act of political pragmatism, eliminating a perceived threat to his absolute authority, even if it was his own chosen heir. James then named another nephew, Charles Anthony Johnson Brooke, as his successor. Charles, a more compliant and loyal figure, would indeed inherit the Raj and continue the Brooke dynasty. James Brooke spent his final years in England, at Borneo in Devon, a king in exile from his own kingdom, still battling accusations and managing his complex legacy. He died after a stroke in 1868, leaving behind a unique empire and a reputation as a paternalistic but controversial ruler, whose personal life and political actions continue to fuel debate. So, what are we to make of Sir James Brooke, the White Rajah whose life was a grand, improbable adventure? He was a man who defied convention, carving out a personal empire in a distant land, driven by a complex mix of ambition, idealism, and ruthless pragmatism. His legacy is one of profound paradox. He was an enlightened colonialist who banned slavery and headhunting, yet he amassed his power through violence and benefited from the head money system. He claimed to protect indigenous peoples from exploitation, yet his rule was undeniably a form of foreign domination. He was celebrated as a hero in Britain, yet faced accusations of massacre and misconduct. His personal life, shrouded in whispers, defied the rigid norms of his era, adding another layer of intrigue to his already fascinating story. James Brooke's tale forces us to confront uncomfortable questions. Can a benevolent dictator truly exist? How do we judge historical figures by modern moral standards? And what happens when a single individual's ambition reshapes the destiny of an entire region? His name echoes today not just as a historical curiosity, but as a symbol of the complex, often brutal, realities of empire and the enduring allure of a self-made king. What do you think of Sir James Brooke's incredible, tumultuous life? Was he a visionary adventurer, a ruthless tyrant, or a product of his time? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if this journey into the heart of a jungle kingdom intrigued you, hit that subscribe button. Because here, we're always unearthing the most compelling, controversial, and utterly vital stories that shape our world. See you in the next one.